Sex and glue. Is sex really that powerful? Well, let's look at the ancient Hebrew world and the current psychological world and see what these two worlds communicate about the power of sex. And if you would, like and subscribe for more content like this. You can also learn more and investigate more by getting my book, Everyone Loves Sex, So Why Wait? A Discussion in Sexual Faithfulness. And I'll post a link down below in the comment section. Let's begin by talking about sexual faithfulness. Sexual faithfulness communicates that any time in your life, single, married, separated, divorced, you can commit to being sexually faithful. That it is never too late to turn from past or current sins to seek and honor God with our bodies. We learn about the power of sex and sexual faithfulness at the beginning of creation. So let's look first at the Hebrew world. In Genesis chapter 2, verses 24 and 25, we discover the purpose of sexual faithfulness. We also discover that God has given us a powerful gift, the gift of sex. So in Genesis chapter 2, we read this: "That is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh." Adam and Eve were both naked, and they felt no shame. In Genesis 2, the dynamics of marriage are introduced, noting that a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. Now check this out. The word one is the Hebrew word echad. Echad's basic definition is one, but also has a deeper significance. Echad carries with it the idea of one in the midst of unity and is closely connected with another Hebrew word that means to be united. For example, in the scriptures, when it says, all of Israel cried out in one voice. Did all of Israel literally cry out in one voice? The general Joshua said, okay, everyone line up, and on the count of three, we're going to say, no. The point is that there was unity within Israel when they cried out. Unity in that concern. That's echad. Basar is a Hebrew word for flesh and skin and bones. And it can mean among other things as well. Some time ago, I had lunch with Dr. Trimper Longman. He's an Old Testament scholar. He's actually a scholar of scholars. And when I asked him about one flesh, here's what he said. When these two words are combined, it paints a picture of this couple being united at the deepest level, not only physically, but also emotionally and spiritually. Husband and wife, one made from the elements of the dirt, the other taken from a rib, now enjoy God's gift of sex, a physical unity that envisions the becoming of one flesh, emotionally and spiritually. As Adam and Eve came from one body, so now they would once again become one. It's interesting that the writer of Genesis connects the sense of oneness, echadness, if you will, within the dynamics of marriage. It is as if to communicate that this bond is so powerful, so transcending, that marriage is the only force that can contain it. The writers of the Hebrew Scriptures clearly understood this. They honored the importance of marriage so highly, check this out, that the groom was released from his occupation for an entire year. Think about it. No work stresses, no fears of being drafted, no term papers, no homework. The couple simply had one another to focus on. Marriage was sacred. As we investigate this deep bond created during sex, we see that this echadness is not only something we find in the biblical text, but also something that has been recognized in psychology as well. So let's look at the scientific world. Science and spirituality. Empirical meets the spiritual. During sexual activity, our brain releases a number of chemicals. Some of these chemicals include estrogen. This is the chemical that gets a woman in the mood. Another chemical is norepinephrine. Say that 3 times real fast. This is the chemical that is like adrenaline and creates a palpitating heart. Then there's dopamine. This is the pleasure chemical, or the got to have it chemical. And then there's vasopressin, which is the monogamy chemical. And the chief of all these chemicals is oxytocin, the cuddle hormone or the love hormone. Think of oxytocin as glue promoting and bringing attachment. If all the hormones had an opportunity to vote for the most popular hormone in the yearbook, oxytocin would win every single year because it makes others feel good and close when it is active. It's been dubbed the cuddle hormone and the love hormone because it does just that. Oxytocin creates bonding and trust and generosity in us. In fact, whenever you feel comfort or security, you can think of oxytocin. Every form of human bonding, from non-sexual to sexual interaction, involves oxytocin to some degree. The other crucial time oxytocin gets released is during sex. Released in the brain, this chemical creates an emotional bond between partners. One neuropsychiatrist wrote this: whenever a person is sexually involved with another person, neurochemical changes occur in both their brains that encourage limbic emotional bonding. Yet limbic bonding is the reason casual sex doesn't really work for most people on a whole mind and body level. 2 people may decide to have sex just for the fun of it, yet something is occurring on another level they might not have decided on at all. Sex is enhancing an emotional bond between them. Whether they want it or not, one person, often the woman, is bound to form an attachment and will be hurt when a casual affair ends. One reason it is usually the woman who is hurt most is that part of the female limbic system is larger than the man's. One likely consequence is that she will become more limbically connected. Whether we like it or not, oxytocin creates a bond between you and your partner, and the more sexual encounters, the stronger the bond. In other words, oxytocin is a type of chemical bonding glue. A person may choose to have sex once or many times with many different people, and whether they know it or not, a bond is formed each and every time. When this bond gets broken, it creates pain. It leaves a void. Does that sound familiar? Have you ever felt a deep sense of hurt or pain after a breakup? Ever felt a hollow void after a one-night stand? We see in creation God creating the gift of sex and the power it carries. And it is called Echad Basar, Basar Echad, one flesh. All these years later, psychologists have discovered what one flesh is. They just call it oxytocin. So, where do we go with this? God is trustworthy. Remember in the Garden of Eden, the serpent came to Eve saying, God doesn't want you to eat the fruit because you will be like him. And she listened to him. She listened to his deceitfulness. But what exactly was the lie? It was that God is not trustworthy, that he is holding out on them, that there is a better way. Ever since Adam and Eve ate the fruit, nothing has ever been the same. Still, to this day, we believe the same lie. We believe God doesn't know what is best for us. God doesn't care about my deepest desires. God isn't there. And here's the essential question we must ask. Is God truly trustworthy? God is not holding back on us. God's not saying he wants us to be sexually faithful because he doesn't want us to enjoy life. Quite the opposite. God wants us to live how we were designed to live. Being sexually faithful is a great act of love that you can do for your current spouse or your future spouse. Now, please hear me on this. So wherever you are in your journey, there's always hope. There's always redemption. There's always restoration. I know whenever there's a message like this, sometimes you might feel hurt. You might feel triggered. Understand this, that if you have been hurt or violated, that is not your fault. There are good psychologists, good counselors. There are good ways to work through the pain that has come with those who have been violated. For those who've just lived a life and you're realizing, man, I'm not where I want to be. It's never too late. It's never too late. And once we say to Lord, forgive me, He forgives us, and we can start fresh. For more content like this, please like and subscribe.